Hey everyone, it's Taylorverse, and welcome back to I Hate Myselfie by Shane Dawson. YouTube got me fired. I've always been a hard-working guy. It's actually one of my downfalls. Well, that and dipping sauces. I can really fuck up the condiments bar at the Fuddruckers. Waitresses always think I'm joking when I ask for a serving tray of different dipping sauces options with my meal. They laugh and tell me how hilarious I am. I don't laugh and tell them to get me a tray of sauces. When I was 7, my first job was getting the newspaper every morning from the front porch and taking it upstairs to my grandma. I know it sounds simple, but I was obese and my front porch had like 6 steps, so it was a daily struggle. Also, the fact that I had to walk up another 30 steps to get to my grandma's bedroom made it damn near impossible. I saw a commercial for one of those electronic stair chairs for handicapped people that literally lifts you from the first floor all the way up to the second story of the house. It was on my wish list to Santa every year. I never got it, but I did get a Princess Diana beanie baby in a glass box, so I was forgiven. When I was 12, I moved on to bigger and better things. I sent in my letter of resignation to my grandma and told her that I needed to explore other options. There was more out there for me. More than just getting the paper every morning in exchange for a few fat-free Snackwell's cookies. I was going to be the richest kid on our block, which wasn't saying a lot considering the richest kid on our block still couldn't afford braces at 15. Poor kid looked like he'd taken a bite out of the street. I was going to be a success. I was going to do it the American way. Make a bunch of shitty products and force my neighbors to buy them because they felt bad for me. I had a plethora of ideas. Some were better than others, but they all had one thing in common. They were terrible. One was a frozen ice cream pop that was made from fat-free yogurt and peanut butter. It actually ripped off my taste buds and made my tongue bleed for 2 hours. But instead of adjusting the recipe to make it not tongue-bleedingly dangerous, I just decided to sell it the way it was. I sold about 10 of them the first day, which was great, but shockingly, I didn't get any reorders. So, it was time to move on to my next product. Friendship bracelets. I did that one. What do you need to show that you and your friend care about each other? Not open communication, not acceptance of each other's flaws. No. You need shitty-ass bracelets that are impossible to take off, so you end up getting dirt, shit, and garbage all over them. Yeah, that's what friendship is. I sold about 15 of them, and I felt like I'd struck gold. You should have heard my pitch. It usually went something like this. Ding dong. Oh, is it Girl Scout cookie season already? No, I'm not a girl and I don't have cookies. Oh, well that's unfortunate. But I do have something better. Save it, I'm an atheist. I don't know what that word means. I'm 12. Well, by the looks of you, and what God gave to you to work with, you'll know the word pretty well in your teens. Looking forward to it. Well, What I'm actually here about is a product I'm very excited to share with you. Tell me, do you have any friends? They're all dead. Great! Well, wouldn't it be nice to have something to remember them by? My last friend stole my husband, so that's kind of hard to forget. Wow, that got dark really fast. Well, I have something more uplifting than that rage-filled, vengeful heart. How about wipes out shitty bracelets from Home Improvement Lunchbox? Oh my god, I loved that show. Friendship bracelets. Cute. I'm closing the door now. I have to change my colostomy bag. This experience has completely filled it. Please hear me out, miss. I don't know your name, so I'll just call you Miss Beautiful. She blushed, not sure if it was from flattery or embarrassment from the smell of her colostomy bag leaking, but either way she was engaged. Now, who's somebody in your life that you can really rely on? My cat, Cheddar. Great, but let's try a human. Silence. Mrs. Beautiful, do you want to be my friend? Not really. Then let's just be bracelet buddies. I tied a bracelet on her wrist. Whenever you look down at this bracelet, just remember that there's someone in the world wearing the same bracelet on the same wrist looking down at it too. I tied a matching bracelet on my wrist, so whenever you look down, you won't feel alone. Kinda cool, right? Yes, it is. She smiled, adjusted her bracelet, got it to fit right, looked back up at me. You give that speech to all the lonely ladies on the block? I'm only wearing one bracelet, ma'am. We shared a smile. She handed me $5 and I was on my way. Now, I'm not going to lie, I was playing with her emotions. I knew that she was lonely and that feelings like there was someone who cared might make her more inclined to buy something from me. But is that so bad? She was a sad old lady who smelled like feces and had a cat named after a type of government cheese. Who wouldn't feel bad for her? But that's what made me a great salesman. I cared. Which led me to my next job, which was 6 years and a lot of hair product later, weight loss product salesman. I walked into the front door of a very prominent national weight loss center in Huntington Beach, California, 2 days after my 18th birthday. I was ready for a grown-up job. Selling bracelets to old ladies isn't as cute when you're a teenager with constant accidental boners. I needed something with benefits and responsibilities. Something that I could be proud of, and to me, helping people shed pounds was perfect. Besides, I knew these people. These were my people. I could share all my experiences with them and show them there was a light at the end of the tunnel. If only the company had felt the same way. From what I could tell, even on the first day of the job, its mission was to make as much money off fat people as possible. For those of you who don't know how weight loss management companies work, I'll break it down for you. Imagine a grocery store where the lady at checkout counter asks you to reveal all your darkest demons, and then gives you a smiley face sticker and asks for your credit card. It's pretty much like that, except in this case, that lady at the checkout was an 18-year-old boy who had no idea how to help people with their physiological problems and had no nutritional knowledge whatsoever. Before walking through the front door of the center, I had to go through 5 days of Nutrition 101, which sounds way more informative than it was. It was basically me and 6 other hopeful employees sitting in a creepy back room at some abandoned weight loss center, being lectured by a suicidal divorcee about the food pyramid. One of our topics of the day was things my ex-husband eats that makes him a fat piece of shit. That was pretty informative, actually. After 5 days of that, we got our certificate, which I'm pretty sure you could just find on Google Images and print out, that were given the go-ahead to join the family. Sitting with a group of older women, being told that we were now joining the family, made the whole thing very sister wives. I was the gay-looking husband, and they were my unattractive, annoyingly significant others, who I secretly hoped would die in a house fire while I was at work. The first thing I did before starting my new job was go to Target and get the fanciest first day outfit I could find for about $2 or $20 or less. I purchased ill-fitting black pants and showcased my white gym socks underneath a faux silk button-up shirt that was not sweat-resistant, and a 2 sizes too tight Jonas Brothers vest that had vanity buttons on the shoulders. Looking back, I looked like a claymation Tim Burton character, but at the time, I thought it was the shit. I even remember thinking if I ever win a Teen Choice Awards, I'm totally gonna rock this on the purple carpet. Which happened, and I did. But that's another embarrassing story for another time. Back to fat pimping. I walked into the weight loss center, and to my surprise, there was nobody there. It was creepy, like an abandoned city in a zombie movie. All that was left were empty chairs with coats hanging off the backs and the lingering smell of cheese curls. After about 10 minutes of looking around, I opened the back door, and there they were, all the employees smoking cigarettes, eating gyros from a truck, and having a burping contest. And the best part is that they were doing all of this while standing under a huge sign that said, "Live Healthy." The irony was bigger than my before picture. It was practically busting out of its seams. It was then I realized this whole company was a facade, and it was just another way for America to make money off fat people. But I didn't hate the job. I ended up working there for over 3 years, and I became one of their most successful salespeople in the entire country. I would have bigwigs come up to me at conventions and ask, "How do you do it? How do you sell so much?" And my response was simple: I care. I actually wanted to sell the clients the food and see them every week because I wanted them to succeed and lose the weight. But I also had a winning sales pitch to help me out when a new customer wasn't biting. Ding! The scale hits a high number. The new customer's in denial. "That's not right. Maybe it's my shoes." "It's not your shoes. It's time to take control of your life. Today." I don't know how I let myself get this big. You ate. A lot. The amount you ate in a single sitting is enough to feed a full house of relatives in an African village. How dare you? Yes, I did. I dared myself to take control of my life, and I did. I lost 150 pounds, and so can you. Do you want to hear more about our program? I don't know. Is it expensive? It's $500 for the year, plus the cost of food. What? That's insane. I can't afford that. Let me ask you something. If your car broke down today, what would you do? Fix it. Yes, of course you would. What if it was going to cost you $5,000? And if you didn't fix it, your car would blow up? I'd pay it. Well, this is your life, which is way more valuable than a car. And you're willing to spend $5,000 on a hunk of metal, but not $500 on your life? Now, does that make sense to you? Wow. I never thought of it like that. That's why I'm here. Welcome to the family. Damn. Cha-ching. I hate to say it, but I was the shit. And I wasn't lying when I gave my sales pitch. I believed every word I was saying. I really thought this job was what I was born to do, until it all ended. I was early to work on that fateful day, strolling in at 7 a.m. wearing the most unflattering outfit Macy's had to offer. I had been promoted that week before, so I had to up my game. Target wasn't going to cut it anymore. I needed real silk. Enough of that faux shit. My hair was bone straight and my pimply face clean shaven. I was ready to start the day. When I walked in, I greeted everyone like they were my family, because after 3 years of working there, they were. I looked at my before and after picture, which was hanging on the wall in the lobby, and I gave it a good luck fist bump. I walked back to my office and opened the door, and I saw a stranger sitting in my chair. She was fat, so I thought she was a new client. "Oh, I'm sorry, the waiting area is in the lobby. I'll be right out, and I'll bring you back to weigh you. I'm excited to start this journey with you." My hand reached out for a friendly handshake. It was not received. "I'm not a client. I'm from the corporate offices, Shane." "Really?" I looked her up and down. Not really the vision of health someone who works at a weight loss corporate office should be, but who was I to judge? "Okay, so can I help you? I'd like you to pack up your stuff and be off the premises in 5 minutes. What? Time is ticking. Stopwatch activated. What are you talking about? Is this a prank? Is this some kind of fat punk? Is some fat Ashton Kutcher gonna pop out of the freezer room and yell, 'Gotcha'? I'm not Ashton Kutcher, Shane. Please pack your things." What did I do? Is it because what I did in the bathroom yesterday during lunch break? I didn't know there were cameras in there. What? Nothing. Never mind. I masturbated at work. A lot. So what did I do? She told me, and I was pissed. Apparently, I was fired because I had made a vlog at work. Now, this was back before everyone vlogged, so I guess the weight loss center was freaked out that one of their employees was making strange internet videos at work, when in reality my vlogging was only promoting their company more. But it was 2009, so I can't hate them for not being hip to the times. But what I am mad about is the way they handled the situation. Not only did they fire me, they fired our other employees who were in my vlogs, and that included my mother and brother, who had started working for the company after I did. As I walked out of my office carrying all my belongings, I stopped and stood before my poster. "I'm taking this, and when I get famous, I'm going to tell everyone that I lost my weight using your arch rival Nutrisystem. Good luck with that." Even though this was one of the worst days of my life, it was a blessing in disguise. It forced me to focus on my YouTube channel, which eventually was successful enough that I could buy my mom a house and even spend more than $20 on an outfit at Target. So in closing, I'd like to say thank you to the Weight Loss Center for firing me. Just like when I needed to quit my job as paperboy for my grandma to explore my options, I needed to leave the world of weight loss to see what else was out there. And what I found was so much better. So for that, I'm thankful. Also, if you would like to lose weight and get in the best shape of your life, be sure to call 1-800-Nutrisystem. Astral projection. I've always been different. Not just in a, wow, that kid is different. Did his mom try and shove him down the toilet at prom kind of way, but in a spiritual way. I was never an avid churchgoer, but I don't know the Bible cover to cover. Oh, and I don't know the Bible cover to cover, but I've always had a strong connection with God and the spiritual world. When I was a kid, I would just lie on my bed and talk to God for hours. On second thought, maybe I'm schizophrenic. Honestly, that would explain a lot. Anyways, on the night I found out my parents were getting divorced, I lay in my bed and cried for hours. I was 9, and the thought of my entire world changing was overwhelming and too much to handle. I had already eaten all the Nutter Butters in the house, so I resorted to sobbing into my Lion King pillowcase. I felt a hand on my back and a soft, calm voice telling me it's going to be okay. So I turned over thinking I would see my mom sitting on my bed next to me, but there was nobody there. I know I should have been freaked out, but for some reason I was okay, and the fact that some kind of spirit had just touched and spoken to me. Thinking back, that was creepy as shit, and I can't believe I didn't piss my bed. A year after that, I started having really intense dreams. I was super close to my paternal grandmother, who had just died. Everyone always said when I grew up, I would look just like her. Which was disheartening, considering she was a morbidly obese woman who lived in a chair. She literally never got up from her chair during the last 15 years of her life. She had her fridge within arm's reach distance, arm-grabbing distance, and I'm pretty sure she peed into a big gulp cup. So my future was looking really bright. The night after she died, I had a dream that I floated out of my body and flew up into the sky. I could actually see myself lying in bed, and I could see my entire neighborhood as I floated away. When I got higher than the clouds, I heard the voice of my grandmother. I turned to look at her, and what I saw was a young woman in her 20s floating next to me with the biggest blue eyes I had ever seen. She had long flowing hair, and she was wearing a pink baby doll dress. We had a long conversation about life, death, and how she didn't want me to end up like her. She told me to stay strong and not let anybody get me down. She told me to quit emotionally eating and learn how to deal with pain by being creative and expressing myself. She said I was destined for greatness, and she would be watching me every step of the way. When I woke up the next day, I ran to my mom's room and told her about the dream. I told her what Grandma looked like and how it was like a younger version of herself. My mom started crying and ran to the closet to get something. She grabbed an old photo album and flipped to a picture of my grandmother when she was in her 20s. She looked exactly like I dreamed she did. The big eyes, the long hair, and even the same pink baby doll dress. My mom said that she believed when we die and go to heavens, our bodies go back to when we were the happiest. My grandma chose to go back to her youth when she wasn't stuck to a chair. From that morning on, I knew I had some kind of strange connection to the spiritual world. Either that or eating 200 Nutter Butters before going to sleep caused some seriously fucked up hallucinations. When I was 13, I started having different kinds of dreams. There weren't conversations with dead people, but instead dreams in which I would float around my neighborhood and spy on people. I know, that's creepier than talking to dead people, but trust me, if you were 13 and could sneak on your neighbors, you would. The first experience I had with this was one day after school when I decided to take a nap after watching about 3 hours of Saved by the Bell reruns. My family and I had just moved into a new apartment building that weekend, and I hadn't met any of our neighbors. I laid my head back and drifted off pretty quickly. Then I opened my eyes and started noticing that the ceiling was getting closer and closer to my face. I turned around and saw that I was floating out of my body. I hadn't done this in years, and I started panicking. I tried everything I could to get back into my body and wake up, but nothing was working. It was honestly the scariest feeling I'd ever had. Well, That and the feeling I got when my school nurse made me take off my shirt in front of the whole class and give me a scoliosis test. That was traumatizing. One kid asked why my nipple looked sad. I don't quite know what he meant, but I also kind of know exactly what he meant. As I floated farther away from my body, I decided to just go with it and see where it was going to take me. I went right through the front door like the Kool-Aid Man, except the door didn't blow up into a million pieces. I just kind of dissolved through it. I floated through my new apartment building and saw some new faces. A blonde lady walking her golden retriever, a young Asian kid riding a scooter, and a gardener obviously looking into a woman's window while she was changing clothes. My first thought was, what a perv. My second thought was, I can probably float through that window. But I held back and decided to go back to my body. I woke up in a huge sweat and let out a gasp. I instantly decided to pretend the dream was one of those that only felt super realistic. I totally disregarded the possibility that I could have had actually floated outside my body. Ring, ring. I jumped up and screamed like a big-tittied blonde in a horror movie. Why do phones always ring when I'm already on the edge of freaking the fuck out? I answered it, and it was my mom asking me to come to the car and help her with some boxes. As I walked out the door, I saw 3 things that would change my life forever. A blonde lady walking her golden retriever, a young Asian kid riding a scooter, and a gardener looking into a woman's window while she was changing clothes. This was not a coincidence. This was something bigger. Astral projection, or astral travel, is an interpretation of out-of-body experience that assumes the existence of an astral body separate from the physical body and capable of traveling outside it. Now, I know this is hard to take in, and I'm sure a lot of you have started mentally checking out, but trust me, it's not bullshit. If I were bullshitting you, I would write a whole story about how hard it was being a kid in high school with 15-inch penis that kept getting stepped on in the hallway. I'm sure that would make for a more interesting book. If the term astral projection sounds familiar to you, it's probably because you saw that 2010 horror film Insidious about the kid who could float outside his body while dreaming. When I saw that movie, I freaked out. I thought I was the only person who ever experienced such a thing. And it didn't help that the kid in the movie floated down to hell and was enslaved by a pedophile demon that looked like Michael Jackson covered in menstrual blood. I'm surprised I ever slept again. After watching the movie, I went back home and started researching, and learned that astral projection was incredibly common. Even some celebrities can do it, like Gary Busey and Shaq. Okay, I'm aware that those aren't the best examples of people to trust, but hey, it's something. That night, I lay in bed and tried my hardest to float outside my body. I thought maybe I could go and hang out with other floaters and talk about how cool we were because we could watch other people sleep. Who knows, maybe I could even become friends with Gary Busey and Shaq. Unfortunately, nothing happened. A week later, I went to sleep not expecting anything, and of course that's when it happened. I had the most intense astral projection of my life. I was taking a nap in my garage, which, believe me, is not as weird and depressing as it sounds. My garage had been converted into an office, and had a sick-ass couch that was so comfortable I could imagine becoming my fat, dead grandmother and living on it. As I drifted off to sleep, my eyes began to open, but this time I couldn't float out of my body. Something was holding me back. I looked around and saw a black figure standing by the door. It didn't have a face and didn't have much of a shape. It was more like the essence of a person. I could hear it breathing, and it started getting closer and closer to me. I tried everything I could to wake up, but nothing was working. My heart was pounding, and my stomach was churning like I was going to throw up. The figure was getting closer and closer, but I still couldn't see its face. Then it put its hand, which looked more like a claw, on my chest and started pushing down. I felt like this presence was trying to get inside my body. Finally, I woke up and jumped off my couch. I ran out of my garage and into the house. I knew what just happened wasn't good and was too real to be a nightmare. I decided to do more research, and what I found was truly frightening. Many people who astral project run into situations where they encounter an angry spirit who want to harm them. Some even said that the spirit tried to jump into their body while they were away from it. Their advice was to will yourself back into your body when you start to feel threatened. Now, this all sounded like the scariest shit in the world, and I never wanted to sleep again. But I knew that eventually the Red Bulls would wear off, and I would have to face my demons. Literally. A few nights later, as I fell asleep in my room, I decided that if any dark figures tried to mess with me, I would just will myself back into my body and everything would be okay. What's the worst that could happen? I get possessed by some crazy demon, murder my entire family, and upload my confession on my YouTube channel? As if. So I fell asleep and once again opened my eyes. I was floating. I was out of my body and floating in my room. I had left the TV on, and there was a rerun of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives playing. If that spirit was to come back, hopefully the image of Guy Fieri choking down a 10-inch hoagie would scare him away. Just then, I felt something was off. I was beginning to float out of my room, but I looked back and saw the dark figure standing next to my body. I started panicking and felt my heart racing. I tried to close my eyes and will myself back into my body, but it wasn't working. The figure looked up at me. This time it had a face. Hi, kitty. What you doing? Hi, baby. Oh. You pretty baby. Where you going, Doctor? Yeah. He's a good boy. It was almost animalistic. I decided to get up as much courage as I could, and I floated toward the figure and tackled him to the ground. It turned into a long, violent battle between me and this dark, cold mass. Then suddenly I woke up. I was sweatier than I had ever been in my entire life. Oh, fuck. Let me, turn that shit off. Even sweatier than when I found out 0-calorie butter spray is actually 1,000 calories per bottle. Those fucking liars. This had gotten out of hand. I didn't want to ever astral project again. I'm not as strong as Gary Busey or Shaq. After reading up on people who have been in similar situations, I learned that to avoid astral projecting, all you have to do is tell yourself as you're falling asleep that you aren't going to let it happen. So I started doing that. Slowly but surely I stopped and went back to having dreams about my entire family murdering me and eating my limbs for their survival. You know, normal dreams. If you have ever astral projected, don't be afraid to explore and float around, but remember, if it starts to get out of hand, don't continue it. I think Gary Busey and Shaq might still be out there floating around while some mentally challenged demons have taken out over their bodies. Maybe Britney Spears is a projector. Wow. Now everything makes sense. Just a pretty face. As a young boy going through puberty, there are a lot of things you hope people notice about you. Your newly grown leg hair, your barely there mustache, and most of all, your deepening man voice. The last thing I would do every night before I fell asleep was pray to God that when I woke up, I would have at least one of those 3 things. Okay, that's a lie. The last thing I would do every night before going to sleep was violently hump my bed. I also used to pray that I would one day experience an orgasm. When you were a kid, you didn't really have a release. You just have an urge to hump every object in your house. Sometimes even food. Am I going too far? Let me get back on track and also away from discussing boy penis. I'm guessing there are legal ramifications for talking about that in a book. Anyways, every morning I would wake up to the same. No leg hair, no mustache, and definitely not a deep voice. But the worst trait that I had was something no boy wants. I had a pretty face. Now, I don't want this to sound cocky. I really did have a beautiful face. It was plump and round in all the right places. My cheekbones were high and sat perfectly under my Coke bottle glasses, creating a cute little crease when I smiled. My lips were soft and shiny, my eyelashes were literally 3 inches long and made audible flapping sounds when I blinked, like a fairy flying through the clouds. I'm still shocked and slightly offended that I was never molested. Even though my face was pretty, I didn't have a haircut to match. It looked like I had gone into a supercuts and asked, "Who here is suicidal and wants to leave the world with one last fuck you?" It was as if someone had put headshots of all the lesbians in Hollywood into a computer system and had all their hairstyles morphed into one super mega lesbian haircut. If it was physically possible for Rosie O'Donnell and Ellen DeGeneres to breathe, they would have popped me out. Because I looked so much like a woman, I tried really hard to dress like a man. I would wear big flannel shirts, baseball hats, and cargo shorts with a lot of pockets. But it only made it worse. I didn't look like a man. I just looked like a really butch lesbian. I looked like the giver in the relationship, if you know what I mean. I wore the pants and brought home the bacon. At our lesbian wedding, I put the ring on her finger and led our first dance. Which, side note, I went to a wedding recently, and the first dance was Elton John's The Last Song. Which, the whole time, all I could think was, isn't this a song about AIDS? Bold choice. But it wasn't just my looks that made me a little woman. It was my voice. I had the voice of a 1940s Hollywood darling. Every time I opened my mouth, my grandmother would tell me how much I reminded her of Judy Garland. When a telemarketer would call and they would start with, "How are you today, ma'am?" This made it very easy for me to hang up on them guilt-free, so for that I'm grateful. But what was worse than my voice and my womanly exterior was the fact that my best friend was my mother. So, not only did I look and sound like a chick, but all my interests were of the female persuasion. Joanne craft store on a Saturday? You don't gotta ask me twice. My mom and I would drive around the city for hours, blaring Paula Abdul and talking about how much my father didn't understand us. We would get froyo with extra toppings because it was our cheat day and because we deserved it. I even remember going to a lingerie store to help her find something for her anniversary. She wanted to get something sassy yet functional and nothing that screamed I'm willing to try anal. That last part I just assumed because she never wanted anything with butt fringe. Sometimes we would refer to ourselves as Thelma and Louise. Looking back, I realize how unhealthy and disturbing that is, but back then it was great. I love spending hours watching chick flicks and braiding my mom's hair, and don't get me started on how good I was at balling melon. I was the melon balling queen. If my mom had died, I think I would have been able to take her place pretty easily. I mean, having sex with my father would have been weird, but I'm sure I could have adjusted. Everything was great until one day the whole mama's boy world came crashing down. It was a really hot day and my boy tits were dripping. I was lying on the couch with a Weight Watchers ice cream bar, enjoying everything Montel Williams had to offer. Usually it was just rants about MS, but sometimes he'd have a psychic come on and tell people their lost kids were dead. And that was pretty interesting. My mom walked into the kitchen, tying her huge red hair into a bun, and opened the refrigerator to get a cold breeze. She put her ass against the vegetable drawer and moaned like a dog getting scratched in all the right places. We couldn't afford air conditioning, so it was up to us to find our own source of cold air. We had to get really creative. One time I put a pair of my underwear in the freezer and wore them the next day. I still blame that incident for why my flaccid penis is so shriveled to this day. "Let's get out of here," my mom said as she wrung the sweat out of her tumbleweed-like hair. "To the movies? We kind of already saw Titanic 8 times. I don't think we can handle that kind of emotional distress again." I had already cried all day because I found out Weight Watchers had changed their point system and no longer included free foods. Nazi assholes. "No, let's go to the beach," Mom squealed. My body froze. The beach was not a happy place for me. There were way too many variables that made it uncomfortable. Everyone was half naked, homeless couples kissed each other in the shade. There was bird shit everywhere, and worst, all of my skin would burn instantly. It was like putting a wrapped ding-dong in the microwave. Wait, is that reference too fat for generic public? Okay, ding-dongs have a foil wrapper which makes them flammable when put in microwaves. Sorry for expecting you to know that. We packed up our stuff and got in the car. Even though I hated the beach, at least I knew there would be a breeze, and that was better than melting in my shitty apartment. As we got close, we started looking at the cool beach houses and talking about how awesome it would be to live in one someday. We were lesbians planning out our lives together. One day we would have a house on the sand, a big golden retriever, and a themed room. You know, like a reading room that looked like a jungle, or a scrapbooking room that had lots of pictures of babies and weird costumes everywhere. Something classy and tasteful. We pulled up to the parking lot and found a spot right away. We were always really lucky when it came to that stuff. My mom would say, God is with us. And I would always think, shouldn't God be helping that big-stomached children in Africa instead of helping us get parking spots? But hey, a spot's a spot. We got our stuff out of the trunk and lugged it to a nice area out on the sand. Right in between a trash can with cum dumpster spray painted on it, and a family of 20 celebrating somebody's cumpleaños. I have never seen that word written out. That was weird. We lay down on her shared towel, and I started rubbing her down with suntan lotion. Not in a creepy way. She just couldn't reach her back. Also, I have a really soothing touch. It's one of my many gifts. That and I can tell someone they have a booger hanging out of their nose just by looking at them a certain way. We laughed the afternoon away and ate massive amounts of Otter Pops, it was the perfect summer day, and then it was ruined by one dumb, visor-wearing bitch with a chest sunburn and spider veins. She walked by with her husband and her ugly dog and said, I don't have a problem with lesbians, but I just don't want to look at them. My heart sank. I don't know what hurt more, the fact that she was obviously a homophobe or the fact that she thought I was a woman. Not a little girl, a full-blown woman. I was only 12. Sure, I had a pretty face and some perky breasts, but wasn't it obvious that I was a child? My mom pretended she didn't hear it and changed the subject. Hey, you know Oreo is coming out with a new flavor this month? I think it's creamsicle. No, Mom, you can't make me forget what just happened. Not even if Oreo is coming out with something that sounds revolutionary and fucking delicious. I'll not just sit here and ignore what that bitch just said. Mom, do people really think I'm a girl? My mom's silence told me everything I needed to know. The next year of my life was hell. I was called ma'am everywhere I went. I wouldn't even set foot in a Sizzler because I was constantly mistaken for a waitress. I tried everything I could to be more manly. I shaved my hairless face, thinking maybe that would speed up the 5 o'clock shadow process. Instead, that just gave me lots of face cuts and a mental scar after I found out it was my mom's everything razor. I tried stuffing my crotch with socks, but that just looked like I had a fat vagina. I asked my older brother for advice, and he said, just wait it out. One day you'll wake up and look in the mirror and see a man. I promise. So I waited. Every morning for the next year, I would run to the mirror to see if anything had changed. Besides the fact that I was getting taller and fatter, I didn't notice much difference. But then one night, shortly after my 19th birthday, I took a trip to PetSmart with my mom. As we were checking out, the man at the register handed me our bags and said words that I'd never heard before. Words that I had waited my whole life for. Words that seemed stupid to the average person, but to me meant everything. He said, "Have a nice night, sir." Sir. He called me sir. I was overwhelmed with emotion. I started crying and grabbed my mother for a hug. He had no idea what was going on, and I'm sure he thought I had some kind of disorder. But I didn't care. It was my moment, and I was taking it. And that night, when my mom and I went out for froyo, it wasn't just because it was our cheat day. I really did feel like I deserved it. From that day forward, I was a man, not just on the inside, but on the outside as well. Thank you, random pet smart cashier. You changed my life. Oh, shit. We're gonna end that one there. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.